And since he was the first fruit of the Spirit, if Jesus rose again, then I will rise again. I have more testimonies in here of folk who were written off. I feel it in here. I have more testimonies in here of people who they said would never come back. And I've got news for you. Can I just preach it there? I wish I were around a little table having a conversation. You say people will write you off and say you'll never come back. But my eyes are on Jesus. And here's what I've discovered, Everett. Whenever you have been to hell and you have been under the earth, where you've been in the graveyard of decadence, the graveyard of being used, the graveyard of negative, debilitative dispositions and actions, when you've been in the graveyard, and some people been in the graveyard for 1 day, some 2 days, Jesus 3 days, some of us 3 weeks, some of us 2 years, some of us 5 years, and the folk who are standing on the top of the graveyard have written you off, walked away and left you. But when God stirs your spirit and up from the grave you arise, can I tell you when I know you up from the grave? Because like Jesus, you don't come up from the grave by yourself. You release a whole lot of dead folk who are coming behind you. Show me somebody that's come back from something, and I'll show you somebody reaching for others and say, come on out of here with me. We're going to another place. Oh, I feel something. Give somebody a high five and say, neighbor, I'm not the same. I don't live the same. I don't think the same. Oh, God. Hold it, Pat. We got, just give me 5 more minutes. It's important to understand now that the cross does not become an obstacle to resurrection, but a necessity for it. I look at my own life, and you didn't know it unless you had a lot of discernment. But just the last couple of years have been the toughest time of my life. And I'm not kidding. I was down and out. I was in a place that nobody would know, because oftentimes you excel to an extent that even when you're running on half, most folk don't pick it up. But the truth is, I had to come to the place where I was at the cross. I was hanging with nails and sick of myself in order for there to be a resurrection. Sometimes God has to allow you to be nailed to what it is that you don't think you can get rid of. And one of my friends told me, just go on and die. Don't sit here fighting to live a half life. Die out of the half life so you can be resurrected into a full one. Do you have the courage to let go so you can come back with the energy of a new man? I want to talk to somebody. Do you have the courage to release everything and start all over again? I'm talking to somebody here. Somebody. I don't mean if it's just one. What? Because all I need is one. Because what would it profit to save the whole world or to gain the whole world and lose your soul? One soul is more important than the whole world. I ain't trying to convince everybody. I'm just trying to convince one person in here that if you have the courage to let go of what's making you sick, God will put in its place something that'll make you better. And when you look back at it, you'll holler, hope maketh not ashamed. I'm glad I gave it up. I feel the power of the Holy Ghost. I'm almost there. And the only way to comprehend that is to comprehend the promise and live in it. And this is what changes us. That's why Jesus told them, you can't take my life. I'll lay it down and I'll pick it up when I get ready. And that's what you ought to tell the enemy. You can't take my life. The inner power that I have abolishes fear. Can I preach like I feel it? Touch your neighbor and say, neighbor, no more threats. If you're going to do something, do it. But other than that, shut your mouth. I ain't going by no more threats. I ain't scared of ghosts. I'm scared of real people. I ain't scared of ghosts. I feel the Holy Ghost. We might as well have church. I'm not controlled. Tell your neighbor you're not controlled by circumstances any longer. You're in control. You're not controlled by what Johnny says or what Sally says or what your boss says or what the newspaper says. You're controlled by what you think about yourself. And if you think powerful, that's what you'll be. If you think great, that's what you'll be. If you think victory, that's what you'll have. I'm sick and tired of being somebody's puppet on a string. I drive my own car and I'm out of the back seat of your car. Give somebody a high five and say it's time for you to live. I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. I feel like lifting him up. I feel like giving God the glory. I feel like having church right about now because it's time to live. And that's why God's hand is in all of this. So one day Jesus says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But 3 days later I hear him saying, all power in heaven and earth is given unto me. It sounds like an infinite contradiction, but it's theology in its deepest form, because what it does is identify you moving from a regular body into a glorified body, which means that God has taken your downtime and transformed your life. I've come to make an announcement. I'm not the same person. Shake somebody's hand like you're going to shake it off and tell them I'm different because I believe I'm different. I've got a future because I believe I got a future. I've got power because I believe I got power. I got victory because I believe I got victory. I'm gonna be rich because I believe I'm going to be rich. I'm going to overcome because I believe I'm going to overcome. And I believe it because God promised it.